The small school was quiet in the early morning, the halls empty except for the soft echoes of footsteps. The woman walked down the corridor carrying a stack of sheet music and a few folders. She had always preferred mornings like this, when the world felt calm and she could think clearly. She was not like most of the other teachers who enjoyed attention and praise. She moved quietly, spoke softly, and never tried to be the center of attention. Her life had always been simple, focused on teaching and caring for her students. Her colleagues often overlooked her because of her modesty. She wore plain clothes, kept her hair tied back, and smiled politely but rarely spoke unless necessary. Yet beneath this quiet exterior was a secret that very few people knew. She had been trained from a young age to play the piano, and not just play, but to perform at a level that left audiences speechless. She had won competitions, traveled for recitals, and been recognized by music teachers who could see talent as soon as they heard it. But that was a long time ago. She had stopped performing publicly for reasons she kept to herself. She liked the peace of her current life, away from the spotlight and the pressure of fame. Music was still her passion, but now it was something private, something she gave freely only to those who truly wanted to listen. That morning, she entered the staff room where a few teachers were already gathered, drinking coffee and chatting. They were discussing the upcoming school event, a showcase where staff members would perform to entertain parents and visitors. The atmosphere was casual at first, but as soon as she entered, a few voices turned toward her. "Hey, maybe you should play a piece for the event," one of the teachers said with a teasing tone, smirking. "We need someone to take on that really difficult piano piece. You look like you could try it." The comment was meant as a joke, but the woman felt a small knot of anxiety in her stomach. She knew exactly which piece they were talking about. It was challenging even for skilled pianists, and the teachers assumed she would struggle. They had no idea of the skill hidden inside her, the years of practice and dedication that had shaped her fingers and her mind. She hesitated, not wanting to make a scene or refuse. She smiled politely, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. "I'll think about it," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but inside, her heart was racing. She knew this was more than just a joke. It was a challenge, and deep down, she couldn't resist the chance to touch the keys again. As the teachers laughed and moved on to other topics, she left the room quietly. Walking down the hall, she remembered the long hours she had spent practicing in her childhood, the countless times she had performed for judges and audiences, the thrill of perfecting a piece until it sounded effortless. She remembered the applause, the pride, and also the exhaustion. Performing had been both joy and pressure, and she had chosen peace over recognition. But now, a tiny spark of excitement stirred inside her. The piano had always been a part of her, and the thought of playing again, even under pressure, awakened something she had not felt in years. After the staff meeting, she returned to her classroom. She closed the door and sat down at her own small upright piano, the familiar wood worn smooth from years of use. She lifted the lid, placed her fingers on the keys, and played a few soft notes. At first, it was tentative, like testing a bridge to see if it could hold her weight. But soon, the music began to flow, effortless and natural. The melody she had memorized years ago returned to her, each note precise and full of emotion. She felt her confidence growing with each measure, her nerves slowly transforming into focus. The difficult piece the teachers had mentioned was still daunting, but she realized that her hands remembered, even if her mind had feared it. Over the next few days, she practiced in secret. Each evening, after the school day ended and the hallways were empty, she would sit at the piano and work through the challenging sections, slowly mastering them again. She remembered the feeling of connection with the instrument, how the keys seemed to respond to her emotions, how the music could speak when words failed. No one saw her during these moments, and she preferred it that way. She wanted to prepare fully before revealing her skill to anyone. Meanwhile, at the school, the other teachers continued to joke about her taking on the difficult piece. They imagined her stumbling through it, imagining the laughter that would follow. None of them could guess that she had once been considered a prodigy, that she could perform flawlessly even under pressure. The more they underestimated her, the the more determined she became to show them what was possible. One afternoon, as she walked past the music room, a student peeked inside and saw her playing. The student froze, amazed at the complexity of the music, the speed and accuracy of her fingers. She played not for an audience, but for the joy of creating sound. The student whispered to a friend about what she had seen, but the woman remained unaware. Her focus was entirely on the music, and the secret of her talent stayed safe for now. As the day of the school event approached, tension built inside her. She felt a mixture of anxiety, excitement, and anticipation. She was nervous about performing in front of her colleagues, parents, and students, but she also felt a quiet thrill. This was an opportunity to reconnect with a part of herself she had kept hidden for years. She thought about the teachers who had underestimated her, about the doubts that had been cast, and she allowed herself a small smile. The music was hers, and she would play it with everything she had. On the evening before the event, she stayed late in the empty school, practicing once more. The building was silent except for the sound of the piano and her own breathing. She ran through the difficult sections, feeling her fingers move with confidence and grace. She remembered why she had loved music so much, why she had devoted so much of her life to it. It was not for fame, not for applause, but for the connection, the expression, the beauty of creating something that could move others. She felt ready not just technically but emotionally. She was ready to face the challenge, even if no one knew what they were about to witness. Finally, as she closed the piano lid and stood to leave, she looked around the quiet room, feeling a calm determination. Tomorrow would be the day she stepped back into the light, even if only for a moment. She would perform not to prove anything to anyone, but because it was who she was. The humble teacher with a hidden gift, ready to show the world a glimpse of the virtuoso inside her. She walked home with a steady pace, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement, knowing that her life was about to change, even if just for a few minutes in front of an unsuspecting audience. The next morning, the school was buzzing with excitement. Posters for the event were on the walls, and teachers walked around discussing their plans for the showcase. The woman entered the staff room quietly, carrying her folders and sheet music as usual. Some of the teachers immediately noticed her presence and grinned. "So, have you decided if you're going to try that piano piece yet?" one asked, laughing. "We're all waiting to see you struggle through it." Another joined in, making a playful comment about how complicated the piece was. The woman smiled softly, nodding politely. She didn't reply much. The joke stung a little, but it also sparked something inside her. She knew exactly what they were talking about, and she also knew that they had no idea of what she was capable of. After the brief teasing, the teachers moved on to other conversations, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She found a quiet corner of the school and sat down, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of the piano in the music room. She had already started practicing secretly at home and in empty classrooms, but the pressure of the upcoming performance made her heart race. She remembered how she had once played in front of judges and audiences who expected perfection. Back then, the applause and recognition were wonderful, but they were also heavy with expectation. She had chosen a quieter life now, teaching students without the stress of public performance, but something about this challenge made her feel alive again. That afternoon, she went to her classroom and began to rehearse. The piece was difficult, full of fast runs, tricky chords, and complex rhythms. At first, her fingers stumbled slightly, as if reminding her of the years she hadn't performed in public. But then her memory and muscle memory kicked in. Her hands moved with the precision and confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime mastering the instrument. Each note came out perfectly, smooth and emotional. She closed her eyes sometimes, letting the music flow through her, remembering the joy she had once felt when she first learned to play. During one of her practice sessions, a student wandered in quietly. The student stopped at the door, eyes wide, listening. The music was beautiful, far beyond what anyone expected. The woman didn't notice the student and kept playing, lost in the melody. When she finally looked up, the student was standing there, almost afraid to move. "I didn't know you could play like that," the student whispered. The woman smiled gently, her face calm. She didn't boast or explain. She simply nodded and continued to practice. She wanted her talent to be known in its own time, not as something to show off, but as something to share naturally through music. Back in the staff room, the other teachers continued to joke about her. They made plans for the showcase and casually mentioned the piece she was supposed to play. Some of them were clearly excited to see her struggle, thinking it would be entertaining. They didn't realize that under the quiet, humble exterior, she was more than capable. Each joke, each laugh at her expense only strengthened her resolve. She didn't want to prove them wrong to humiliate anyone, but she wanted to show that talent and humility could coexist. That evening, she stayed late after school, sitting alone in the empty music room. The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows across the room. She played the piece again and again, perfecting each difficult section, making sure every note and phrase was clear and precise. Her mind was focused, her heart steady. As she played, she remembered her past performances, not for the fame or applause, but for the feeling of connection with the piano. She remembered how each piece of music was like a conversation, a story told without words. She realized that performing again, even for a small audience at the school event, was a chance to share that story once more. She thought about her colleagues and the audience. They expected mistakes and nervousness, but she would not give them that. She wanted her music to speak for her, to show her dedication, her passion, and the skill she had cultivated for so many years. She knew that once she played, there would be no turning back. She had to be ready, mentally and emotionally, to give her best performance. Over the next few days, she continued practicing secretly. Each morning before classes, she would arrive early and play a few notes to warm up. Each afternoon, after school, she would rehearse in the empty music room, running through the entire piece multiple times. With each repetition, her confidence grew. She remembered how she had once felt when performing in front of large audiences, the rush of excitement and the focus that came naturally. It was different now, though. This performance was not about winning prizes or recognition. It was about embracing her own talent and sharing it honestly, without fear or hesitation. Meanwhile, the students began to notice the change. Some whispered to each other, wondering why the woman seemed so focused and determined. They had always admired her gentle nature and teaching skills, but they hadn't known the depth of her talent. Now, even the quietest students sensed something special, a secret strength that had always been there but had never been revealed. The woman also thought about her own reasons for avoiding the spotlight all these years. She had loved performing but had also feared the pressure, the judgment, and the expectations. She had wanted a simple life where she could teach and enjoy music without the stress of constant scrutiny. But now, with this challenge before her, she felt ready to step forward. She didn't need to be in the spotlight permanently, but for this moment, she could share the gift she had spent a lifetime developing. On the day before the school event, she practiced one final time in the empty music room. The room was silent except for the piano and her steady breathing. She ran through the entire piece from start to finish, each note ringing clear and true. Her hands moved with grace, her mind focused, and her heart full of emotion. She knew that tomorrow would bring nerves, eyes watching her every move, and perhaps even the smirks and jokes of her colleagues. But she also knew that the music itself was her ally. It would guide her fingers, calm her mind, and speak the story she wanted to tell. As she closed the piano lid and walked out of the room, the sun had set completely, leaving only the soft glow of the hallway lights. She felt a sense of quiet satisfaction and anticipation. She had prepared as best as she could, and no matter what happened tomorrow, she had already proven something to herself. Her talent, her dedication, and her love for music could not be hidden forever. The woman went home that night, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. She thought about the faces of the audience, her colleagues, and the students who would watch her. She imagined the first notes of the difficult piece and how the music would fill the room. Deep down, she felt ready. She knew that tomorrow would be a turning point, a moment where her hidden virtuosity could shine. But even more importantly, she felt ready to embrace her passion again. Not for anyone else, but for herself and the music she loved. The morning of the school event arrived, and the building buzzed with excitement. Students chattered in the hallways, teachers hurried from room to room, and the staff room was full of nervous energy. The woman walked quietly through the corridors, carrying her sheet music. Her heart beat a little faster than usual, but her face remained calm. She had prepared for this moment, yet the thought of performing in front of so many people still made her stomach twist with nerves. Backstage, the other teachers were joking and laughing. Some of them whispered about her, imagining that she would struggle through the difficult piece. They didn't know what they were about to see, and their underestimation only made the anticipation thicker. The woman listened to the chatter quietly, allowing herself a small smile. She didn't mind the jokes. They wouldn't affect her performance. Her focus was entirely on the music. The auditorium was filled with parents, students, and faculty. The lights were bright, the seats neatly arranged, and the stage decorated with flowers. The first performers took their turns, some singing, some playing instruments. Each performance received polite applause, but the excitement in the room was building. Finally, it was her turn. She walked onto the stage, carrying herself with quiet confidence. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the room, curious and expectant. Some teachers leaned forward, anticipating mistakes, while students whispered to each other, unsure of what to expect. She sat at the grand piano, the polished wood gleaming under the stage lights. Her hands hovered over the keys, feeling the familiar weight and texture. For a moment, the room was silent, everyone waiting. She took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the keys. The first note sounded soft and tentative, like a gentle whisper. The audience leaned in, listening, but still unsure of what they were hearing. As the piece continued, something began to change. The tentative notes transformed into flowing, confident music. Each chord and melody was precise, full of emotion and depth. Her fingers danced across the keys effortlessly, moving faster and smoother than anyone could have imagined. The difficult passages that the teachers had laughed about were executed flawlessly, each note perfectly timed. The music filled the auditorium, reaching every corner, capturing the attention of everyone present. The audience began to sit in stunned silence. Parents and students stared, wide-eyed, as the humble teacher revealed a level of skill they had never seen before. The teachers who had joked about her could hardly believe their eyes. Their smirks faded, replaced by astonishment and respect. They had expected mistakes, a struggle, maybe even a laughable performance, but instead they were witnessing something extraordinary. Her hands moved with incredible speed, but each note was deliberate, each phrase full of feeling. She closed her eyes at times, letting the music guide her. She was not performing to impress or to prove anyone wrong. She was performing because it was who she was. Every movement, every sound, told a story, expressing emotion that words could never capture. The audience was captivated, held in the magic of her playing, unable to look away or even breathe too loudly. As she reached the climax of the piece, her fingers flew across the keys, hitting the most difficult sections with ease. The energy in the room was electric. People leaned forward, completely immersed in the performance. Even those who had doubted her talent were now silent, witnessing the full extent of her virtuosity. The music was no longer just sound. It was a force that commanded attention, that demanded respect. When the final note rang out, there was a brief, almost surreal silence. The audience needed a moment to process what they had just heard. Then, applause erupted, loud and enthusiastic. Some people stood, some clapped rapidly, some wiped away tears. The woman opened her eyes, finally looking at the crowd, and allowed herself a small, humble smile. She had played with everything she had, but she did not seek personal recognition. The music itself was the reward. The teachers who had made jokes earlier were still frozen in their seats, stunned. They had underestimated her completely, and now they had no choice but to acknowledge the incredible talent they had ignored for so long. They whispered to each other, some looking embarrassed, others speechless. It was a moment of realization that true skill and humility could coexist, and that judging someone by appearances or quietness was a mistake. Students came up to her after the performance, eyes wide with admiration. They asked questions about her training, how long she had been playing, and how she could play with so much emotion. She answered gently, keeping her modesty intact, encouraging them to pursue their own interests and work hard at what they loved. She wanted them to see that dedication and passion could create something beautiful, but it didn't require boasting or showing off. The rest of the staff was amazed as well. Some approached her cautiously, offering congratulations and apologies. They admitted that they had misjudged her and were inspired by her skill and humility. The woman accepted their words graciously, never letting pride or resentment show. Her focus had always been on the music and on sharing it, not on winning approval or proving herself. That evening, as she walked home, she reflected on what had happened. The performance had been a challenge, yes, but it had also been a reminder of who she was and what she could do. She felt a quiet joy, knowing that she had shared a piece of herself through the piano, that she had touched people's hearts without saying a word. She realized that her humility and her talent were not contradictions. They were parts of the same whole, making her music even more powerful. Over the next few days, the performance became the topic of conversation at the school. Students talked excitedly about the piece, teachers praised her skill, and parents expressed admiration. Yet she remained the same humble woman she had always been. She returned to her teaching with the same quiet dedication, encouraging students, helping them learn, and occasionally playing the piano for them during lessons. She did not let fame or attention change who she was. Through this experience, she also gained a new confidence. She realized that her talent was a gift, something to be shared when the moment was right, and that it could inspire others without needing to dominate the spotlight. She had faced the challenge, embraced her skill, and come out stronger, not just as a musician, but as a person who understood the true value of humility, dedication, and passion. The performance at the school event would always be remembered, not just for the extraordinary music, but for the lesson it carried. Everyone who witnessed it learned something about underestimating others, about recognizing hidden talent, and about the quiet strength of someone who does not seek the spotlight but shines when given the opportunity. The woman returned to her life with a deeper sense of purpose, knowing that her music could touch lives, and that sometimes the greatest surprises come from those who least expect it. After the performance, the auditorium remained alive with excitement. The audience members could not stop talking about what they had witnessed. Many of the parents and students were still buzzing with amazement, discussing the technical skill, emotion, and control the woman had shown at the piano. They kept replaying in their minds the way her fingers had moved across the keys, the power of her performance, and the subtle emotions she conveyed through every note. For most of them, it was an experience that felt almost magical, something they had not expected to see at a school event. The teachers who had made jokes about her were still sitting in the auditorium, stunned. They whispered to each other, their faces pale with surprise. They had assumed that she would struggle or make mistakes, and now they were forced to confront the truth. They had completely underestimated her. Their jokes and teasing had been misplaced, and they were unsure how to respond. Some were embarrassed, some were silent, and a few were even speechless. The woman's performance had shattered all their assumptions, and they had no words to explain what they had just witnessed. Students approached her cautiously, a mixture of awe and curiosity on their faces. They asked her how she had learned to play so beautifully, and how she managed to perform such a difficult piece with confidence. She answered their questions with calm humility, explaining that it had taken years of practice, dedication, and love for music. She emphasized that talent alone was not enough, and that hard work and patience were just as important. Her answers inspired the students, showing them that true skill required both commitment and passion. The school principal and other staff members came forward to congratulate her. They praised not just her skill, but the grace and humility she had shown throughout the performance. They recognized that she had handled herself with elegance and professionalism, turning what had been a joke into an extraordinary display of talent. The principal spoke about how her performance had left everyone speechless and reminded them that sometimes, the most extraordinary abilities are hidden behind the quietest people. As word of her performance spread throughout the school, more people approached her, eager to learn about her background and experience. Many were surprised to learn that she had trained as a piano prodigy from a young age, winning competitions and performing in front of audiences long before she had become a teacher at the school. They were fascinated by her story, realizing that her humility had masked a level of skill that few could match. It became clear that her dedication to music had never faded, and that she had kept her talent alive through constant practice and personal discipline. Despite the recognition, she remained modest and grounded. She did not seek personal fame or attention, nor did she attempt to boast about her abilities. Instead, she focused on her students, encouraging them to explore their own talents and to find joy in learning and practicing. Her actions demonstrated that true mastery of a skill was not just about performance, but also about sharing knowledge, inspiring others, and staying true to oneself. During the following days, many of the students and parents shared their excitement about the performance. They discussed how the woman had managed to play such a difficult piece flawlessly, how the music had captured their emotions, and how her talent had surpassed all expectations. It became a popular topic, and the story of her extraordinary performance began to spread beyond the school walls. People admired not only her technical skill but also the way she had conducted herself with humility, proving that true talent could shine without arrogance. Some teachers who had previously underestimated her approached her privately to apologize. They admitted that they had judged her too quickly and had failed to recognize her abilities. They were impressed by how she had taken on a challenge, performed it beautifully, and handled the reactions of the audience with grace. She accepted their apologies with a quiet smile, showing that forgiveness and understanding were part of her character. Her humility and kindness left a lasting impression, not just because of her musical talent, but because of her character. In the days that followed, she continued teaching her students with renewed energy. She played the piano during lessons when appropriate, allowing students to experience music in a more personal and engaging way. The performance had not changed her approach to teaching. She remained patient, encouraging, and supportive. However, her students were now more attentive, inspired, and motivated to learn. They had seen firsthand what dedication, talent, and passion could accomplish, and they were eager to follow her example. The woman also found herself reflecting on the performance and its impact. She realized that her decision to embrace the challenge had been a turning point. Not only had she demonstrated her abilities, but she had also inspired others, showing them that hidden talents could emerge in unexpected ways. The experience reminded her of the importance of courage, practice, and humility, and she felt grateful for the opportunity to share her gift with others. Her colleagues, students, and parents continued to speak about the performance for weeks. Many people described how the music had moved them emotionally, how it had left them in awe, and how it had inspired them to think differently about talent and humility. The woman became a symbol of quiet strength, a reminder that true skill often lies hidden, waiting for the right moment to shine. She remained a humble teacher, but now with a quiet recognition of her own abilities and the respect of those around her. As she returned to her regular routine, the woman continued to practice and nurture her love for music. She understood that talent was not just about performing for an audience, but about dedication, emotion, and connection. The experience had reaffirmed her commitment to both teaching and music, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that the music she played could touch lives, inspire students, and create lasting memories. Her quiet strength and exceptional skill had left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed her performance. Over time, her story became a lesson for the school community. Teachers and students alike learned the value of humility, perseverance, and recognizing hidden potential in others. The woman's performance became an example of how dedication and passion, combined with grace and modesty, could create something truly extraordinary. She continued to teach, perform privately when appropriate, and inspire those around her, remaining a symbol of the power of talent paired with humility. The experience also strengthened her confidence. She realized that while she preferred a simple life, she could still embrace opportunities to share her abilities without losing her sense of self. Her performance had not only amazed the audience but had also reaffirmed her belief in the importance of following one's passion, working hard, and staying true to oneself. She felt a quiet pride, not in seeking recognition, but in knowing that she had faced a challenge, performed beautifully, and left a lasting impression on everyone who had listened. Through it all, she continued to focus on the students and their growth. She encouraged them to explore their talents, to practice diligently, and to approach challenges with courage. She showed them by example that true achievement was not about seeking applause, but about dedication, humility, and the joy of mastering a craft. Her life, quiet yet extraordinary, became an inspiration for all who knew her, demonstrating that talent combined with humility could create moments of beauty and wonder that would be remembered for a lifetime. In the weeks following the school event, the woman found herself receiving attention she had never sought. Parents who had attended the performance approached her with words of admiration and gratitude. They were impressed not only by her technical skill but also by the way she played with emotion and humility. Some parents shared how their children had been inspired to take music more seriously, now motivated by her example. They spoke of the performance as if it had been a revelation, a reminder of how dedication and passion could create something truly extraordinary. Her colleagues also began to see her in a new light. Teachers who had previously made jokes or doubted her ability now approached her with respect. Some apologized for their earlier behavior, admitting they had underestimated her. Others were curious, asking how she had mastered such a difficult piece and how she maintained her composure on stage. She answered politely, never boasting or seeking to elevate herself. She explained that it had taken years of practice, patience, and love for music to reach her level, emphasizing that dedication and persistence were key. Despite the recognition, she remained the same humble woman she had always been. She continued teaching with patience and care, focusing on her students' progress rather than her own achievements. She encouraged her students to explore their interests, practice regularly, and approach challenges with courage. Her example inspired them, showing that hard work and passion could lead to extraordinary results, even if the person achieving them remained quiet and modest. Word of her talent began to spread beyond the school. Some local musicians and educators learned of her performance and reached out with invitations to participate in recitals and community events. She considered these opportunities carefully, weighing the desire to share her music with the need to maintain her personal boundaries and simple life. In the end, she accepted only a few invitations, choosing to perform selectively, ensuring that music remained a source of joy rather than stress. Her students noticed the subtle changes in her after the performance. She seemed more confident, but not proud or boastful. There was a quiet assurance in her movements and a new energy in her teaching. She would occasionally play the piano during lessons, allowing the students to hear and feel the music as it was meant to be experienced. These moments became treasured experiences for the students, who began to view music not just as a subject, but as a form of expression and connection. The woman also began to reflect on her own journey. She remembered the years she had spent practicing alone, the competitions, the performances, and the moments of both triumph and disappointment. She realized that her decision to step into the spotlight at the school event had been more than a challenge. It had been a turning point. It reminded her that while she valued her quiet life, sharing her talent could have a profound impact on others. It was not about recognition or fame, but about inspiring, teaching, and connecting through music. Parents often stopped her in the hallways or sent notes expressing gratitude. They spoke of how their children had been motivated, how they had taken up instruments, or how they had developed a new appreciation for music. The woman received these messages with quiet satisfaction, understanding that the real reward was in the positive influence she had on others. The applause and attention were fleeting, but the effect she had on the students and the community was lasting. Some of her colleagues suggested forming a small music club or organizing workshops, inviting her to lead. She agreed, not for recognition, but for the opportunity to help students explore their own abilities and to foster a love for music. In these sessions, she taught more than technique. She shared the importance of dedication, focus, and the joy of expressing oneself through music. Her guidance was gentle and thoughtful, and students responded with enthusiasm and respect. The woman also found herself mentoring a few students individually, helping them navigate challenges and build confidence. She encouraged them to set goals, practice consistently, and embrace the satisfaction of improvement. Her students admired her patience and the depth of her knowledge. They could see that her talent was not just innate ability, but the result of years of careful, disciplined practice and love for the craft. This realization motivated them to take their own practice seriously, knowing that perseverance could lead to excellence. In the evenings, she sometimes played the piano alone, allowing herself to reconnect with the music without an audience. These moments were personal and restorative, reminding her why she had loved music from a young age. She reflected on how far she had come, the challenges she had overcome, and the quiet impact she had made. Music had always been a central part of her life, but now she understood its potential to touch and inspire others in profound ways. Her story began to influence the broader school culture. Teachers became more attentive to the hidden talents of students and colleagues, realizing that quiet or modest individuals could possess extraordinary abilities. The event had demonstrated that assumptions could be misleading, and that encouragement and support could help people reveal their best selves. The woman's performance became a symbol of this lesson, reminding everyone that talent and humility could coexist beautifully. Despite the recognition and invitations, she maintained a careful balance. She continued teaching full-time, focusing on her students, and participated in music events selectively. She chose projects that aligned with her values and that allowed her to share her skill meaningfully without compromising her simple, grounded lifestyle. In this way, she preserved her love for music while also using her talent to inspire and educate others. Over time, the woman realized that her life had changed in subtle but meaningful ways. She had gained confidence, earned respect, and influenced the next generation of musicians and students. Yet she remained the same person at heart, humble, dedicated, and kind. Her extraordinary performance had not changed her essence. It had only allowed her to express it fully and share it with the world. Her students continued to flourish under her guidance, inspired by her example. Some pursued music more seriously, while others developed confidence and creativity in other areas. She saw the impact of her teaching and realized that her performance at the school event had been a catalyst, not just for her own growth, but for the growth of everyone around her. The lessons she imparted extended far beyond technical skill, touching lives and shaping character. In reflecting on her journey, she understood that true recognition was not about applause or praise. It was about the quiet, lasting influence one could have through dedication, humility, and the willingness to share one's gifts. She had faced a challenge, performed with skill and heart, and inspired others without seeking fame. That realization brought a deep sense of fulfillment, a reminder that the path she had chosen was the right one. As the months passed, her story continued to inspire those in her community. Teachers, students, and parents often recalled the performance and its impact. The woman remained a quiet, grounded figure, yet her presence carried a new depth of respect and admiration. Her music continued to be a source of inspiration, and her example reminded everyone that hidden talents, when nurtured and shared with integrity, could change lives in ways that were lasting and meaningful. Through all of this, the woman stayed true to herself. She continued to teach, to play, and to inspire, understanding that the value of her talent lay not in public recognition, but in the way it could touch and guide others. Her performance had opened doors, built confidence, and created opportunities, but it had also reinforced her commitment to humility, passion, and dedication. She knew that by staying true to her principles, she could continue to make a difference, one note, one student, and one lesson at a time. Time moved forward quietly in the school, but the memory of the woman's extraordinary performance remained alive in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. Students, teachers, and parents still spoke about that day, recalling how the music had filled the room and how her skill and emotion had captured their attention. It became more than just a story about talent. It became a lesson about humility, dedication, and the unexpected brilliance that can exist in those who quietly go about their lives. The woman continued her teaching with the same patience and care she always had. She never let the attention change her approach to her students. She guided them gently, helping them develop their skills, confidence, and creativity. But there was a noticeable difference in the way people viewed her now. Teachers approached her with respect, students were inspired by her example, and even parents understood that she possessed a remarkable talent. Despite this newfound admiration, she remained modest, letting her music speak for itself rather than her reputation. Occasionally, she was invited to perform at local events or small gatherings. Each time, she accepted selectively, choosing performances that would allow her to share her music meaningfully without stepping too far outside her quiet life. She never sought fame, applause, or recognition. The joy of playing and inspiring others was enough. Her performances became rare but memorable, leaving those who heard them deeply moved and appreciative of her ability to convey emotion through the piano. In the classroom, her influence on students grew. Many of them began to take music seriously, inspired not only by her skill but also by her humility. They realized that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, patience, and a love for what you do were equally important. She encouraged them to challenge themselves, practice diligently, and approach their passions with both focus and joy. Her lessons went beyond technique. They were lessons in character, perseverance, and respect for one's craft. The woman also found that her story had changed the culture within the school. Teachers became more attentive to the hidden talents of their colleagues and students. They learned to look beyond appearances and quiet behavior, recognizing that extraordinary abilities could exist in the most unassuming individuals. The event had served as a reminder that everyone had the potential for greatness if given the opportunity and encouragement. Her example encouraged a more supportive, observant, and respectful environment for both students and staff. Despite her modesty, her talent began to attract opportunities beyond the school. Local music teachers and community organizations invited her to give workshops or participate in recitals. She approached each opportunity thoughtfully, ensuring that it aligned with her principles and that she could continue her work with students without becoming overwhelmed. She accepted a few invitations, always aiming to share her knowledge and inspire others rather than seeking personal gain. These appearances reinforced the impact of her talent and the respect she had earned from the community. Even with the recognition, she remained focused on the students who depended on her guidance. She offered individual mentorship to those with particular interest or promise in music, helping them set goals, develop technique, and express themselves through their instruments. Her mentorship was thoughtful and patient, emphasizing both skill and personal growth. Students admired her approach and responded with dedication, motivated by the example she had set through both her talent and her humility. Over time, the woman reflected on the journey she had experienced. She remembered the quiet years when her talent was hidden, the moments of practice that went unseen, and the reasons she had chosen a life away from the spotlight. She recognized that stepping forward to perform at the school event had been a turning point, not only in how others saw her but in how she viewed herself. It reminded her that her abilities were meant to be shared, that they could inspire and influence others, and that humility and skill could coexist. The woman's story began to inspire more than just her students and colleagues. Parents often recounted the performance to others, describing the quiet teacher who could transform a room with music. Her example demonstrated that talent was not always about seeking attention or recognition, but about dedication, perseverance, and the willingness to embrace opportunities when they arose. She had shown that even those who live quietly and humbly could possess extraordinary gifts, and that those gifts could make a lasting impact when shared thoughtfully. In the years that followed, the woman continued her teaching and occasional performances. She remained grounded, never letting admiration or opportunities alter her sense of self. Her students flourished, inspired by her example and motivated to pursue their own passions with focus and dedication. She witnessed the ripple effect of her influence, seeing students develop confidence, creativity, and skill, understanding that her guidance extended far beyond music alone. The woman also discovered a deeper satisfaction in her life. While she had chosen a quiet, modest existence, The performance and the subsequent recognition affirmed that her choices had been wise. She could share her talent, inspire others, and still maintain the simplicity and peace she valued. Music remained her anchor, a source of joy, comfort, and connection. Each note she played, whether in the classroom or on stage, carried emotion, dedication, and the quiet strength of her character. Her colleagues continued to learn from her example. They became more observant and respectful, realizing that brilliance often resides in quiet, humble individuals. The culture of the school shifted subtly, with more emphasis on encouragement, recognition of hidden talent, and understanding that skill is often the result of years of dedication rather than immediate visibility. Her influence created an environment where students and staff could strive for excellence without fear of judgment or ridicule. Through all of this, she maintained a careful balance between recognition and her personal life. She did not let opportunities pull her too far from her students or from the quiet life she valued. She continued to nurture her talent privately, play for the joy of music, and teach with patience and care. Her humility, skill, and wisdom became intertwined, creating a model of excellence that inspired those around her without overshadowing her personal peace. Ultimately, the woman's journey became a story of quiet triumph. She had faced a challenge, demonstrated her extraordinary talent, and inspired others, all while remaining true to herself. She had shown that humility and skill could coexist and that dedication, patience, and love for one's craft could leave a lasting impact. Her influence extended beyond the music she played, shaping character, inspiring passion, and creating a culture of respect and encouragement. Her life, though simple and modest, was extraordinary in its effect. Through her talent and humility, she had touched countless lives, left a lasting impression on her community, and inspired a generation of students to pursue their passions with dedication and courage. The woman's story was not just about music, but about the power of quiet strength, the beauty of hidden talent, and the lasting impact of a life lived with passion, humility, and care.